Hello again and welcome to a new series of health blogs. I'm going to be looking in the months ahead at how emotions can affect our health. We've looked a lot at diet, how what we eat can affect our health, and now I want to look at the subject of emotions. Now, the first teaching I've called, Is Stress Making You Sick? Okay, that's a good question, isn't it? Is stress causing you to have poor health? Now, all of us have emotions. We would be very boring people if we didn't have emotions. God made us to have emotions. Otherwise, we will be just like robots, kind of just functional and just going through life in a very uninteresting way. So we all have emotions, but it's important to realise that we need to manage those emotions, and there are certain emotions which we could call toxic or even deadly, and they can really do us harm, and that's what we're going to be looking at. We can feel extreme joy at one end of the spectrum to extreme sorrow at the other end of the spectrum, depending upon the events of life. Events can make us angry and frustrated, being stuck in traffic, having too little money to pay our bills, difficulty with our teenage children, getting sick, and so on. Now, I like to quantify things. I like to give numbers. So I said, well, okay, if I'm stuck in traffic, how much stress is that causing me? Put a number to it. And a couple of psychiatrists have done exactly that. Holmes and Ray. Now, those names are spelt like this, so you can type them in on your computer. Holmes, Holmes, and Ray, R-A-H-E. I think that's how you pronounce his name. Now, they have done a stress scale, 43 life events which cause stress. Now, I'm not going to read out the 43. I've chosen some of the more important ones, or some of the more common ones that happen to us. They've given points, a point system starting with 100 and going down to about 10 or 11, and they've classified different events as having different stress effects upon us. The death of a spouse, 100 points. Divorce, 73. Separation, 63. The death of a family member, also 63. If you get injured or you have an illness, 53. The loss of your job, 47. If you retire, 45. Pregnancy is a stress level of 40. Having the baby, 39. Changing job, 36. You'll notice that we're going down in numbers here. Unable to pay the mortgage, 30. Trouble with the in-laws, 29. Your spouse starts work or stops work. That's a stress level of 26. Trouble with the boss, 23. Moving house, 20. Taking a loan, 17. Going on a diet, 15. And even Christmas has a stress level of 12. Now, the tests that these two psychiatrists have devised ask you to look at the events in the past year and then to tick the boxes against which stress you've suffered during the year and total up for the past 12 months what stress you have suffered. If the total comes below 150, then you are really not going to have a likelihood of being stressed out and getting a disease because of it. I did the test this morning, I got 119, so I'm not really subject to the possibility of getting a stress-related illness. Between 150 and 300, obviously, there's a bigger chance of getting a stress-related illness. and over 300 points, if a lot of this has happened to you in the last 12 months, then you're very likely to have a stress-related problem. Now, what happens when we are stressed? We get emotional, and certain emotions are very damaging. Now, here's another list. Damaging emotions: rage, unforgiveness, depression, anger, worry, frustration, fear, grief, and guilt. And you can see some of those would relate to some of those life events, like if you've lost your spouse, then obviously grief, or if you've lost your job, you'd be worried. So you can relate the two lists. So these are damaging emotions. Why would they damage us? What happens is when we feel these emotions, like you get in a rage or you're very worried, then something happens in our brain. The hypothalamus and the pituitary gland produce hormones, and these hormones affect the adrenal glands on our kidneys. The main stress hormones, the two main ones, are adrenaline and cortisol. Adrenaline and cortisol. Now, these stress hormones are useful short term. Suppose you're walking down a dark alley at night and you feel footsteps are following you. You hear them behind you and you think, oh my goodness, I must get away. You must run away, or you must turn and fight. Then, of course, these stress hormones are useful because they put up your blood pressure, make your heart beat faster, and make your breathing deeper and so on. They affect our metabolism, and we're able to face the problem. They're called the hormones of flight or fight, depending on the option you choose. So yes, they have a place in our lives. They're pretty good in certain situations, but if they are there over most of the time because we're always stressed, then they can cause health problems. Now, I want to look at some of the areas that these stress hormones can affect in our body. Some of the areas like our heart, like our gastrointestinal tract and so on. So again, there's another list. I'm sorry, but you may have to listen to this blog more than one time. So stress hormones can cause a variety of physical ailments. In the heart, hypertension, palpitations, arrhythmia or irregular beating, dizziness, and mitral valve sticking or leakage. In the gastrointestinal tract, ulcers, gastritis, inflammation of the stomach, heartburn, indigestion, irritable bowel or inflamed bowel, Crohn's disease. What about our heads? In the head, stress hormones in the head, migraines, tension headaches. On the skin, psoriasis and eczema, acne and hives. So all of these are caused by the release of adrenaline and cortisol. In the genitals or urinary tract, you can have prostate infections, yeast infections, infections in the urinary tract itself, like in the urethra, a low libido. In the back pain, fibromyalgia. In the tendons, tendinitis or carpal tunnel, that's here in the lower arm. In the lungs and breathing system, you can get sinusitis problems because of high levels of stress hormones, sore throats, suffering with asthma or shortage of breath or bronchitis. And finally, in the immune system, you can suffer from chronic fatigue and recurring infection. That's a wide range of things. All can be attributed to stress hormone levels being too high. Now, how does stress do this? Well, take that illustration about the back. Suppose you've got back pain. You think, well, okay, maybe the discs are grinding a little bit, touching each other. But what about the fact that when you're stressed and you've got lots of adrenaline and cortisol in the blood, these two chemicals, these two hormones, restrict the blood vessels. So the back muscles do not receive the amount of blood that they should do. And so the blood and the oxygen supply to the tissues, to the muscle, is not what it should be. The results are that the muscle goes into spasm and you can feel numbness, pain, pins and needles and so on. Also, the waste materials from the movement of the muscle, they are not taken away. The carbon dioxide, the urea and the waste products are not removed from the tissues because the blood vessels are restricted. It's like shutting down one of the lanes on a motorway. The traffic doesn't flow so well. And so these stress hormones affect us very considerably. And I've just chosen one example. Now, during the months that are coming, I'm going to be looking at some of the other effects of these stress hormones. And we must control them. We must know what's happening in our body and how can we keep these stress hormone levels down to a manageable level. And that's what I'm going to be looking at in the months ahead. I hope you'll join me. Until the next time, God bless you and thanks for listening.